Hello everyone and welcome to the Open College podcast series. On this episode we have Dara Byrne from Prioritising Mum, formerly Mammy Hub. This one I took a step back from while Mary discussed all things parents and how to cope while you're studying at the same time. A good listen to those who are parents, but also some nice tips in there in general for those who might be interested. So without delaying much longer, here's Mary talking to Dara Byrne.
Hello everyone, so this is Mary McGlynn back again. I'm the careers advisor for the Open College, and today we're going to do a podcast with a very interesting woman called Dara Byrne. She runs a very helpful platform for mammies on Facebook called the Mammy Hub, and it's a space for mammies and any parent really to connect, in any way they can, support one another, provide helpful tips and advice and all things mammy, really. And she runs lots of talks with professionals about different things relating to parenthood, which is brilliant. I found it really, really helpful in the past, to know that there's other mammies and parents out there sort of in the same boat as you when you have a problem, and you make really, really good connections, and there's so much helpful advice and information and videos on there. And Dara's also completing lots of courses as well. She's doing a course in life coaching, and neurology as well, and there's a course in fertility as well, but you can talk us through all of those I suppose as we go along. And she's also a busy mammy as well to a wee girl. So a lot of our students, Dara, as I spoke to you before, be busy mammies as well. Like, we have a very high percentage of our students that are parents. So I just thought, it's something that hasn't really been spoken about before, the pressures of parenthood while trying to study.
Yeah.
And it's something that I come across as a careers manager all the time, talking to students, that mummies, daddies become overwhelmed, and they reach breaking point much quicker because of the workload that they have, and they don't realise it. When they say, yes, this course is great, I can do this, I can fit it in, they don't realise the work that's involved, and then they kind of, have a breakdown in the middle of it, So it's something that's not really spoken about, and I thought that you would be just perfect for this, because you're kind of doing everything. You've gone through, a lot as well. So, right, so look, enough about me. Do you just want to start off maybe, Dara, by telling me exactly, what you do in regards to your online platforms and your courses and all of that?
What do I do? I suppose you had mentioned that it was the Mammy Hub, which it had been up until about 2 or 3 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I changed to Prioritising Mum, which is what it's called now. I suppose you were saying that I have been through my different courses. I have the practitioner diploma course, so I've just completed that. And as you said, I'm a mammy, so I'm trying to balance all of that. And I suppose I've realised that it isn't quite possible to balance everything all the time. And like you were mentioning, that a lot of people, they get into something and maybe our expectations on what it would be like or how much we can do, and we didn't kind of plan for a pandemic in the middle of it all too. Yeah, it's just trying to, I think my biggest learning over everything that I've been doing is I was walking with a friend the other day and we came up, with the idea of the word ebb and flow, in that energy, boundaries and balance, and that the flow, as in being in the moment and going with what things are each day and the different expectations that are put on ourselves. And that the biggest thing definitely for me is where I've been putting my energy and what's important. And the Prioritising Mum, I suppose, it was the idea of putting you back into mom, so that, like, the individual, because I know we had mentioned before about talking about mom guilt or boundaries or different things like that. And I suppose that's just where I am at my life stage now. So the Mammy Hub had kind of been about the connecting, and I suppose I kind of felt that it was maybe getting a bit too big, and kind of been reading a lot of Brené Brown and different things, and the idea of being the authentic self, and then the coaching as well. You learn about, we've spoken about this before, your values and your beliefs and representations of you. And I suppose it just wasn't sitting right with me anymore because it was bigger than what I was able to give or what energy I was able to bring to it or how much I could do with balancing everything that's going on at the minute. Yeah. I tend to go off topic, and I'll do that a lot, but I think I answer the question some of the time.
Oh yeah, Dara, no, that's brilliant. And yeah, so you mentioned so many different things there.
Yeah.
And I suppose you said that you kind of had to stop and reflect and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose, what would be the best sort of advice for our students that are finding it very kind of, difficult, to prioritize everything? Like, how do you prioritize, or what does it mean to you?
What is priority? I suppose it's what's important to me, and when I think about if what I'm doing is fun, am I enjoying it? Is it what I want to be doing? And what are my goals? What do I want to achieve from it? As well as trying to balance everything else that's going on in my life. Like when we think, if we were in the middle of God forbid, if there was a hurricane or if there was a fire, what would be the three things that you'd grab? It wouldn't be your textbook. It wouldn't be those things, it would be you. It would be your partner or your children or your dog or whoever you're living with, and just bringing it back to what's important, and if what you're doing, if you're enjoying it. I suppose yes and no, they seem like such small things, but and the idea of self-regulation and checking in with myself and seeing, am I still enjoying this? And if the answer is yes, then keep going. And if it's no, then kind of reflecting on why and what I can do differently to change that. And whether it's something I want to continue doing, or the idea of it's right for me. Like if it feels right now, if it's the right thing to be doing, because maybe it mightn't be right for right now. And I might have taken on a bit more than I can chew, or if it's the idea of sometimes something's got to give. Like if you think about yourself trying to balance 20 million balls in the air, it's not possible. So it's just looking at bringing that down and making smaller kind of steps to balance things a bit more.
Yeah. So I suppose it's about what you'd mentioned before. It's about stopping, because I know from my own personal experience, when I was working and I was a mommy and I was doing my psychotherapy course and I was doing a lot of traveling over and back, I had reached I burnt out completely. And I suppose the mistake I did was I didn't stop and just think and just go, right, okay, is what I'm doing benefiting anybody here? Is what I'm doing beneficial to me? Is it, and I just, I went through the whole thing. I got out the other side, but I wasn't a very good version of myself at the end. Like I couldn't really do much at all. I just had to rest, and I was more snappy towards people. I didn't really want to work because I was just so tired. I was getting up in the morning going, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to go into work today? I'm just exhausted, and
pushing yourself
and pushing yourself and thinking that this is actually what's expected from you. This is what you're supposed to be doing, when really, no, it's not. As what kind of society has put on your shoulders. You have to be doing this, and you have to show up for this, and you have to be, this amazing mother, and you have to be this amazing person at work, and you have to, you can't get everything, right. And that's what I find. I'm totally agreeing with you there. Like, we should really stop. If you're feeling in any way like that, before it gets out of hand, stop and just think, right, what can I actually do here? If you defer your course for a while, the world's not going to end. No. If you take a break, if you just, as you mentioned, prioritize and your boundaries. Like if you start saying no, and putting yourself first before it gets to that stage.
Before the body makes you say no.
Yeah. And have you had that before, Dara? How has your body told you to just stop?
Well, I know for me, normally if I start getting like, the ear, nose, like anything ENT or UTI or anything like that, that my body's like, okay, I'm giving you a bit of a warning sign now. And it's interesting, I've started, like, because I would have been looking into the idea of trauma and different things because of my own experiences with IVF and with pregnancy and different things, and just the idea of trauma and storing it in the body. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a big, massive trauma. It can just, it's our perception of trauma and the idea that if we don't say no to things, if we're not kind of self-regulating and looking at the idea of what we're saying no to or what we're not saying yes to, then that our body starts saying no for us, whether it's in something not as necessarily as small as a sore throat, but it can manifest in the organs in the body and start becoming more serious too if we're not paying attention to what our bodies are telling us and what we need. Like you're talking about burnout, and I remember there was one day and I was lying on the couch and it was like, okay, if I'm listening to my body, it's screaming, will you please stop? I'm so tired. You know that feeling where you just feel like bursting into tears because you're literally just beyond exhaustion, and that's when you're like, okay, and something's got to give here now. And I've been pushing and pushing, and like you were saying, what are we pushing for? Or what are we doing it for? And stopping and thinking about that, and where's the fun gone, or where's the enjoyment gone? Do you know? And so yeah, so many times we don't do it back, because like you're saying, the expectations that we perceive society are putting on us, or whether they actually are putting them on us, are the stories that we tell ourselves around what we should or shouldn't be doing, or what's right or wrong, or what's important and what's not important, instead of really like reflecting and thinking, okay, is this really important, and is what I'm thinking true?
Yeah, because when is what you're thinking true is right, because when you're in that kind of state, when you're in that burnout state, when you're, even not burnout, like whenever you're just, tired, when you're in that emotional state, you kind of think more negatively, and sort of everything becomes kind of catastrophize. You catastrophize everything, like this is terrible, and I have a headache, and oh god, I have to get up early in the morning, and if you look after yourself, and you really, you don't have these thoughts, you don't catastrophize, and it's very simple, try to look after yourself, but it isn't simple. I know it isn't simple when you're like that. It's a simple thought, but it's not simple in real life.
To put into action. It's the knowing and the being is one thing. It's the doing bit, I think, that a lot of people struggle. You're like, oh, I know I should stop, or I know I should take it easy, but you don't. And what or why aren't you? Or what's really going on that you don't stop? Or sometimes we can be doing things like, especially now, like I've been listening to different podcasts, and there is the idea that people are taking on projects and lots of different projects so that they're keeping busy, so that, they're not thinking maybe or dealing with or processing different things that are going on, because they're focusing their energy into that. But it's still there and it's bubbling under the surface, and it's eventually going to come to the top. So it's like you're saying, before you reach the overwhelm, if we're doing more regular processing, our self-regulation, our conscious attention to our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, and processing what's going on, that we have a better chance of not reaching the burnout, because we're being more aware more regularly for what's going on for us.
That's great. Some great information there. And Dara, is there any tips you could give sort of our students on how to do that, kind of, because I know it's happened to you, and I would say it's happened to the majority of people that's listening. So I suppose, is there any kind of tips you can give somebody to kind of go, right, let's just stop and think about this, like what should they do in regards to, maybe setting some boundaries up, maybe how to put aside some me time, anything like that?
I suppose we had talked before about the idea of like valuing ourselves, and like if you think, okay, I have a doctor's appointment at 12 o'clock, and you're going to be there at 12 o'clock because, one, you're paying for it, and two, we see doctors as someone important and they're going to help us. So why don't we put a value in ourselves and on our own time? and taking time out for ourselves, or relaxing, or going easier on ourselves. And I'm trying to think now. I've gone off in a tangent, so you'll have to remind me of the question again that you're saying, tips on how to
kind of look, I suppose, prioritize yourself before reaching burnout.
Well, I suppose for me it comes back to where I'm putting my energy and what's important to me, and does it make me happy, and is it what I want to be doing. Like, I suppose I always try and steer away from giving advice as such. It's more that this is my experience, and this is what worked for me, and it's me stopping. And I suppose my biggest light bulb is like when someone said to me, "What do you want?" And I was completely like blindsided by that question. It seems like such a small question, but you're just like, I think I broke down into tears, and I go, I actually don't know. I'm so tired. I've been going the whole time, and I've never once stopped and said, in the thick of all of this, what do I actually want? What do I want to achieve? And I don't know, maybe for me it was a huge revelation. So I think sometimes if people just stop and actually ask themselves, what do I want? What makes me happy? What's important? And answering those questions, and then doing something about it.
Yeah, and it's all, and the reason I think we get very kind of taken aback by that question is because we're always working towards what other people want. So we're always, you look at your schedule every day, and it's mostly for other people, really, isn't it? You know, you're getting up, you're looking after your children, your family, then you're doing your work, then you're doing whatever it is in the afternoon, and it's mostly for other people. And I suppose prioritizing yourself, I suppose what I find helpful is having a schedule, every day, and saying, right, yes, I'll get up in the morning, but at a set time during work, I'll during my, just before lunchtime, I'll have maybe 10-15 minutes exercise, meditation, or whatever it may be, just so I can get my time, even just to have maybe a 15-minute relaxing period, whatever it is, to myself. And then, after work as well, to just have maybe 20 minutes to half an hour, just time out again, to do whatever it is. Doesn't have to be the same thing every single day. It's just whatever you enjoy doing. And it's about remembering, I suppose, what you enjoy doing, and to make sure. And that little break of minding me, looking after myself, really makes the world of difference.
It changes your energy, and it's filling your cup, and then in turn that affects people around you too, because if you're happier in yourself, or if you're giving yourself what you need, or if you have better energy, that's like, energy is huge. If you look at neuroscience and the whole systems, and that we're not just one person, we're others and our environment and our relationship. So we're putting that energy out into the environment too. It's like when you walk into a room, and if you're grumpy, or you're tired, or whatever way you want to call it, other people are going to pick up on that too, and that energy is being brought into the room. I'm not saying that we have to be happy or jolly or whatever all the time, but I suppose if we all were taking more time to mind ourselves, or like you're saying, it doesn't have to be like a weekend retreat, which we can't do at the moment, which is it can be the 5 or the 10 minutes, because you're just giving yourself, like, you're valuing yourself enough to give yourself that time, which a lot of the time we don't. Like, people are working from home at the moment, and some people aren't even stopping for lunch, or there's no boundaries of when they switch off. They're still answering work emails at 11 o'clock at night. There's no sense of boundaries, because, like you're saying, the external expectations that a lot of the time maybe we are putting on ourselves, because we think other people are thinking what they're thinking, and they're not at all, because a lot of the time we aren't communicating, or we aren't having conversations around how each other are feeling, or what's going on for each other. It's probably even more difficult now, because it's all behind screens, and there isn't that chance to have the opportunity to read a person's energy, or their body language, or listen to what they're not saying.
Oh, definitely. And I'm glad you brought screens and stuff up, because, and it's the expectation thing again, when you're looking on the different platforms and you're looking at all these happy people, and they're having their gardens look perfect, their family life look perfect, they look brilliant, they look happy, everything, and you think, oh geez, why is everybody else happy except me? When I guarantee, like, people, I would say, take on average about 15 to 20 photographs, and they have to just pick out the best one. You're not going to upload one that you're not happy with.
No. Imagine we put up our screaming child, or the meltdown, or the bad hair day, or the big spot that we have, or no one.
Yeah.
People don't want to see it either. We're all just trying to keep our head above water at the minute, but it definitely doesn't help if people are only putting up the good side of things. I think there probably needs to be a balance in some way. Yeah, the connection, the true proper connection, is definitely lacking at the minute.
Yeah, and well, thank goodness at the minute anyway. There's been announcements that the lockdown is gonna come to an end, hopefully by the end of the summer, and people are gonna have so much more control back of their lives, and you'll see it's gonna make such a difference to people. But I suppose they need to then control how they sort of run their lives in regards to looking after themselves as well. Yes, you can do way more things looking after yourself, but whatever you do, don't run yourself into the ground again. The way it used to be before the lockdown, even everybody was just running around, really like a hamster on a wheel, running, getting nowhere, like running. I could just see it in everybody, so as long as you don't get back to that, and I think because of lockdown, everybody has really had to look at themselves and look at their lives, and hopefully they'll see that what was going on before wasn't really working for the majority of people, especially with lots of responsibilities, as well as having a family. So hopefully we'll come out the other side with it's sort of a more equal way of looking at how to work and how to look after ourselves and our family.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose it's just not worrying about what other people are doing or what other people are thinking. It's more about what's important to me, what's important to my family, what's right for me and what's right for my family, and that being your main focus. And that, like, we've had all this time and we've been locked away for probably over a year now at this stage, and like you say, we've had a lot of time to think about things, but not everyone's been able to do that maybe they've kept themselves busy and don't want. I suppose at the start, we're in a pandemic and you go into adrenaline, but adrenaline only lasts for so long, and then that's why kind of burnout has been happening in different things, because we can only stay going. Adrenaline kind of gets you through shorter periods, and this has been a very, very long period, so people are at the stage where they are burnt out now, and they have had enough, and maybe even going back into society, for the want of a better word, again, when we haven't been around people, when we haven't had to dress up, so to speak, or mind our appearance maybe as much as we normally would, and even just going back into social situations and the anxiety that there can be around that, in that, when do we stop feeling like we have to be 2 meters away from anyone, or when we can start hugging, or when we can have, I think there are a lot of things that are swimming around in people's heads that maybe we're not talking about as well, but it's there in the background that people have to process as well, without sounding too much doom and gloom, but it still is there, and I know I've thought about it sometimes.
Well, definitely. And I mean, the funny thing is, there's social anxiety now going back out into the world, because it happened to me a few times. I was in the shop getting groceries one time. That actually happened quite a few times. In the shop, or we're quite close to Phoenix Park, so we would go to I bring my wee man to the play area there, and there'd be loads of people there, and I'd be like, oh my god. Yeah. I'd start to get really, really nervous and anxious, and not wanting people too close, and then you'd be too close to people, and you'd be panicking, and then you'd be panicking about your child very close to other children, and there definitely is that social anxiety there, so that's another thing we're going to have to get over, work on, I suppose, whenever we go back out into society again, because we've just evolved to being sort of, that distance apart from people. We've gotten used to that now. Now we have to transform again into this other, it's okay to go back again. We have to evolve back there again. So yeah, you're transitioning. It's a difficult transition. The past year and a half now, haven't there been many transitions there? Now we have to transition back. So totally agree with you there, Dara.
It's even transitioning forward as opposed to, because I think things probably, we're never going back to the way things are. It is the new normal, so to speak, and the sense of the unknown, and it's just how we adapt to that and how we be kind to each other. Because I don't know if you've noticed lately, at the start people were really kind of conscious of each other and like, oh, sorry, and they'd step away, whereas now people are so snappy and angry, and sure, they're fed up and burnt out and frustrated and exhausted. And like when we think of, God, that person was so angry or whatever, but like if we think about anger, sometimes it can be more about sadness, or it can be about exhaustion, or it can be about different things. So it's just, I suppose, being kinder to ourselves and kinder to each other while we figure out how we adjust to things going forward.
And there is actually there's different stages to the pandemic on our emotions, and we are right slap bang in the middle of it, the anger stage, because everybody has just had enough. And I do find that a lot of students that I'm talking to would be a lot more kind of irritated at things, and even people I talk to in general, even over the phone, they're more angry and irritated by everything, because
patience and tolerance is a lot lower, because there's just nothing left. People are just defeated. And you're kind of stuck in the house. Your mind, your brain is just filled up with worry, instead of being filled up with your activities of life. We haven't been able to do that, so it's been just filled up with worry. So that's definitely that's definitely had a knock-on effect on people's well-being, mental health, how they're feeling at the minute, which is why it's great that we've received some good news now, that we're in stages. We can see that light now at the end of the tunnel, and it's getting brighter, which is great. One thing I want to ask you about is boundaries, because I find a lot of students, they say, right, no, I said I would do this, and I said yes to that, and I told that person down the road I'd help them with that. How do you go about setting boundaries with people and saying no, and actually, setting aside time for yourself? Or does boundaries mean something else to you? Is there other things we can do there? Well, I suppose boundaries, there's like internal boundaries and there's external boundaries, and the internal is the idea of what I had mentioned earlier about, is this something that I want to do? Does it sit right with my values? Is it what I believe in? Is it important to me? Do I have the energy to do this? And if I'm saying no, why am I saying no? And if I'm saying yes, why am I saying yes? And I suppose sometimes you have to think, maybe if it's family and if someone's important and you really, really want to say no, but you are weighing out whether that person really, really needs you to just do that thing on this one-off occasion, and it's only for a short period of time, and the boundaries around that is that, okay, I don't really want to be doing this, but this person really needs me to be doing it, and I've agreed that the boundary is that it's only for a day or a week or a month or whatever it is, and that's my boundary that I'm setting, that even though I don't really want to be doing it, that person is important to me, or I care about that person, and I know that person really needs it, but the boundary is that I'm only doing it for a certain amount of time, and then after that time that I stop, because that's what I've agreed with myself. And then I think that has definitely what's helped me, because I have said in my mind, okay, I don't want to be doing it, but I'm helping someone I love, but I have set a boundary in that I'm only doing it for a specific amount of time, because that's how much energy I can give to that person without depleting my own energy.
That's a really, really good tip there, actually, because it's not a matter of just saying no. If it's a person that, you really care for, it's okay to help them, but just for a certain amount of time so that you can look after yourself also, which is great. So, if somebody asks you to do something, oh yeah, definitely I can help you with that, but I can only maybe help you once or twice with that because I have so much more on, and that's being assertive. That's a nice way of doing it, actually.
Yeah.
So that's a nice...
reminding yourself and the person, and I suppose what you're putting out there is what people expect. Like the whole idea of boundaries is that you're setting boundaries so that people know how far, not necessarily how far to push, but how much, I suppose, just boundaries in general, in that, okay, this is what the person's giving, and asking anything outside of that. And sometimes people will push the boundaries, but if it gets to the end of that month and they say, look, you're saying, okay, I'm too tired now, or I have different things that I have to be doing, and stopping at that, and the person realizing, okay, she really means, or he really means that the month is the month, and that's it, so I know when they say something. Whereas if it goes on for a year, then you're going to get frustrated and angry because, one, you haven't stuck to your boundaries and the other person has crossed it. But how can they know? Like, if we don't talk to people and if we don't tell them, they're not mind readers either.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know what's going on for people or what situation they're in, and they mightn't be aware enough of that they are not necessarily taking you for granted or pushing you. But if we don't set those boundaries, they don't know to work with us within those boundaries either. So it works both ways, I guess.
Yeah, and that's another good point. The person asking you to do something doesn't realise they can't automatically know what's going on in your life. Like, they can't say, oh, she's got all this. They don't know what's going on in your personal life and everything. So it's a matter of just saying, look, I have this on at the minute. Maybe I can help you maybe further down the line, or maybe I can just help you for a while, and then I need, my time back or whatever. But yeah. So some really, really good points there, Dara. I suppose what I want to ask about next is something that all parents have had so many times, is mommy guilt.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about, Mary. I've never had that.
You've mommy guilt every single day about something or other, don't you?
You do. I suppose when it's at the start of it, and maybe if you're a parent for the first time and you're in that crazy fog at the start of it where you're so exhausted, or hormones, or different changes, or adapting to parenthood, or adapting to new relationships, or the fact that you have to continuously put another person in front of you all the time. And I suppose when we think of guilt, it's the idea that we've done something bad or that we've done something wrong, and we haven't done anything bad or we haven't done anything wrong. So why are we feeling guilty? And it comes back again to saying, like, what stories are we telling ourselves, or what expectations are we putting on ourselves, or what perceived expectations or maybe actual expectations that the society are putting on us. And kind of, again, just going back into your own backyard and what's important to you, or what's real, or what you're actually telling yourself. And when it comes to guilt, when you get through the stage where you're not exhausted or tired, when you can actually start to process, do I need to be feeling guilty, and what's the guilt really about? Or is it about that I don't feel that I'm good enough, or am I not doing it right, or do I feel I'm going to damage or affect my child mentally in some way by not doing whatever I'm doing? And like you say, so-and-so down the road does it this way and she has it all together, and look at her on social media, and I should be able to do the same. Whereas, like you were saying, if we sit down and have conversations with each other and we're more honest and open about what parenting, our mother, our father, or whatever way you want to call it, is actually like, that we kind of go, God, yeah, it's really hard. And what are we all feeling guilty about, or what expectations are we putting on ourselves?
Oh, definitely. And it's like, I always try, because I'll give you an example. Yesterday, my son was it's kind of mommy and my son's day on a Thursday, and we do loads together. And he said he really missed crash today. And then straight away I felt guilty. Oh my goodness, I mustn't be keeping him busy. He must be bored with me. I know I'm not doing enough with it. He wants the crash. then I thought back and I said, if that was a friend coming to me now and they said, oh, my son said this, and he wants, I'm not doing enough, I'd be saying to them, of course you're doing everything. You're doing everything for your son. So why are you thinking like that? So you kind of have to ask yourself, if that was a friend coming to you, what would you say to them? You take yourself out of that black and white way of thinking, either one way or the next. No, it's not. And it's and it's the devil on your shoulder. It's like, you're doing this wrong, doing that wrong. Like, what would your best friend tell you? You're not doing it wrong. You're actually doing it right. You're doing
the best you can with what you've got. Yeah.
Exactly, with what, and if you can do the best that you can, that's actually that's actually the best that you can do. So
with how you're feeling, or whatever way your energy is, or whatever else is going on for you. When I became a parent, I was completely blindsided by my own childhood and all the different things that come up, and the way my relationship had been with my mother or my father or with my own siblings, and all the things. Okay, I'm not going to do it this way because I felt this way, but we don't. They're all just perceptions, and there are feelings, and there are stuff, and there are story, as opposed to that my child is a new template, and how she perceives things and how she sees things and what her stories are or what her reality are, and that I, as her mother, our parent, can't control any of those things. Like, we're just trying to process our own feelings and our own emotions and look at our own energy, so that we have the energy or time or space to help our little people process their emotions and have enough sense, for the want of a better word, to know the difference between what's our stuff and what's their stuff. And when, like you're saying, your child is saying that they want fresh, that they're just saying, oh, I actually miss my friend Billy today, but let's go on and play. And that thought is gone in that split second. He literally just thought, maybe he saw a ball and thought, oh, I had fun playing football with Billy yesterday and that was nice. And because I've noticed with my daughter, everything is just literally black and white and in the moment. So say she's had a cup of water and it's empty, and she's saying, oh, you've had your drink, and she's like, no, it's gone, because it's gone. It's not. Do you know the way just they're so black and white and in the moment thinking? And I know we've spoken about it before, that we forget so much to be in the moment, that we think about the past or worry about the future, when it's literally just they have a fleeting thought and it's gone, and it doesn't mean what we think it might mean, because we're getting into our own stories of what it could mean. And
and it's triggering all those sort of memories from childhood, and growing up, that may not have been so good, and you're going, right, I'm not going to do that with my children, whatever. And as you say, they are their own template. They're going to grow into their own person, and yes, you're going to try and be the best parent that you can be, but it's about processing that trauma and talking about it, and going to a professional and getting it all out there and dealing with it that way, and doing that for you. You'll never do a better thing for yourself than that, if you can go and talk about it and try and process it yourself. You'll always come out the other end even a slight bit better, little bit better. Small steps is what we're looking for there. And what you're talking about there, Dara, is this the conscious emotional processing that you're actually studying at the moment?
Yeah, there's Danny Griffith. She does the Freedom Fertility Formula, and she also has the Freedom Family Formula, which I just completed last weekend. And it's the idea of, I suppose, like you're saying, we've been to therapy and we talk about things, and then we go back into life again, and then suddenly we're back to where we were, because maybe we haven't consciously processed what's going on for us, or what's going on. And I think that was the bit that really drew it to me, because having been through my own fertility, infertility, whatever way you want to call it, and then the anxiety that was in pregnancy, and then kind of adapting to parenthood after, or even just processing childhood trauma or different things that are going on, that yes, I processed maybe all of it, but I didn't. I think it was the conscious part that was missing in that, like, how I was really affected by it, or what it really, really meant. And in kind of reading other people's works, then there's Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she talks about the idea of kind of self-regulation, which I kind of mentioned earlier on, or there's Gabor and he's talking about conscious attention, or there's Katie Byron and she talks about the work, and it's just like the stories our tell ourselves, or is it true or is it not true? And just the idea of all of them, I think for me the biggest thing has been my own, like, if we talk about neuroscience and neuroplasticity, and that the mind can change the brain and that we're whole systems, and just looking at, like we've talked before about, you know, the gut and the head and the heart and our values and our beliefs, and just exploring all of those and what they mean to us. And the biggest thing again comes back to asking what I want and what feels right, because so many times we don't listen to that what we want and what feels right, and that's been a huge learning definitely for me.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, we need to start really asking ourselves that more, don't we? What feels right and what feels wrong? Because we do have a gut feeling.
Yeah, and so many times we don't listen to it.
Yeah, and it's there for a reason. You know, it's the same reason if you're doing too much, you know, your body will tell you that. It'll tell you by getting sick in some way, you know, if you're overdoing it. So yeah, really, really interesting stuff there. And I suppose one more thing I wanted to ask you about, Dara, is like a lot of feedback that I get from students, particularly parents, is because it's really important, you know, to really read loads, you know, research, you know, articles, and, you know, yourself what's involved with the studying and putting together assignments. A lot of them will get the dreaded brain fog. and you know, it's a disaster. It's a real like I've had it loads of times, particularly after I had my son. The brain fog was terrible, and can only be described as like a fog descending on your brain. You know, you just can't think straight. You forget loads of things. The memory's awful. I start to forget words and sentences, and you know, I can't focus. You know, somebody would be talking to me and I'd be like, what? You know, I just don't, I can't process what they're talking about.
No, there's no room left.
And I can't focus on reading or anything. And, you know, as a student, it's debilitating, you know. So I suppose, you know, have you any tips on what, you know, might help with that, particularly as a student if you're trying to study?
I suppose at the risk of repeating myself, I found for me that it does come back to where you're putting your energy, or how you're minding yourself, or what you're putting into your body, how much sleep you're getting or not getting, or, do you know, or if you're trying to balance too much at the same time. And the whole idea again that something's got to give, that we can't be all things to all people, and we can't, you know, like if you are working from home, you can't mind your child at the same time, you can't homeschool at the same time, you can't cook the dinner at the same time, you physically can't do that, yet we're pushing our bodies, even in our minds maybe, to be doing all of those things. And even if we're not physically doing them, we're thinking about the fact that we should be doing them, and we're not getting enough sleep, and we're not getting exercise, and we're not eating the right foods, or doing enough of the things that help us feel calm or relaxed or happy. And I suppose to answer the question is to start stopping and asking ourselves why we aren't doing those things. And like you mentioned earlier, that maybe you need to kind of take a step back or do things a bit slower. I don't know, that isn't always necessarily an option for people to do it slow, but then is that true? Like, do we need to rush and do things as quickly as we're doing them, or is there always the chance to defer things or push things out? I know I remember with essays, like, okay, if it's 2 weeks left, I lose 5%. Like, in the scheme of things, is 5% worth me killing myself for 2 weeks? Do you know, it's just, it comes back to what's important, like whether I want to get my 90% or if I get 80% or whatever percent it is. Like, no one comes to you as a counsellor or as a therapist and go, oh, you know, I'm not going to come to you if you've got 70% instead of 90%. I'm coming to you because of how you make me feel, or how how I feel after I've spoken to you, or do you know, yeah, we get so caught up in what we should be doing sometimes that we don't stop. And we're talking about brain fog. It is literally like the body has reached its full capacity. There is no space to take in any more information or to do anything because we're just so exhausted, and we haven't been doing all the social tending or the self-care, the self-tending or the self-care that we need to be doing to keep up the energy to stay going and doing all the things that we want to be doing.
Yeah. So it's and I'm really glad you brought up that point about losing 5% here or whatever to an assignment, and people are obsessed with getting distinctions. And like you will notice, like when you go in, for a job, an interview or whatever, they're not going to be asking, percentages or whatever. And, if you get a job, the person that you're going to be dealing with, as you say, if you're a coach, if you're a counsellor or whatever you're going for, healthcare worker, childcare, the child or the person on the other end, that you're trying to help isn't going to be asking, oh, did you get a distinction or did you get a merit or whatever? People really do get bogged down with this, and you have to kind of sit back and go, no, well, if I get a merit, it's actually okay. I've passed my course. If I get a pass, it's okay. I've passed my course, and I'm proud of myself considering everything that I've had on my plate. Do you know?
That I'm enough. That the whole perception of perfection, and what, even as a parent, and I think that's a lot of where the guilt can come from too, is that we're meant to be this ideal, perfect parent when good enough is good enough, that you're doing your best.
Yeah.
And that's what's good enough. And if we're talking back, like if you're going into careers, like if you're talking to your students and if they're studying and going forward and doing things, and like there's studies to show that, like if people are referring, you're trying to put your brand out there, a lot of it is to do with referrals. I mean, are you going to go to someone who has like 100% and their website looks fancy? Or are you going to go, like, say, we know each other, and I say, oh, I went to this lady, and, I just felt a million bucks after I came out for it, and she really helped me. You're not going to go, well, has she got 100%? And did she do it? I trust you because we're friends, and you're telling me that this person helped you, so I'm more likely to go to them because you're saying that that's how they made you feel, or they really helped you, or they gave you what they needed, as opposed to they got their 100% or however many degrees or doctorates or whatever they have, which I know, it's important for regulation and being safe and careful and all that type of thing too, but it's not good. People can be all those things, but if they're not making you feel, if you're not getting what you need or want from those things, all of that's completely irrelevant.
Yeah, you're right. And it's amazing if you can get the distinctions or whatever. But it's a matter of
at what cost.
At what cost? And just to say to yourself, if I don't get a distinction, what's the worst that could happen? And especially in most lines of businesses anyway, it's about how the person makes you feel, even if it's marketing, anything at all. Like if the person's very helpful, supportive, if you create that rapport, if the person is just very helpful along the way, the customer isn't going to be worried about what mark you got in your exam or what mark you got in your assignments or whatever. It's a very, very relevant point for our students out there. And I'm glad you brought up sleep and exercise and food as well, because the way, Dara, I'm always going on about sleep and how important sleep is. And I don't know how many talks I've seen on the TV recently about the pandemic sleep and people not sleeping properly and waking up because of all the worries that they have. Your brain's trying to process this at night time, and there's so much worry that it's using up so much energy at night time that it wakes you up a lot, because it's like, I've had enough. It just wakes you up a lot, so you're sleeping. You're not prepared.
I think is the toughest thing for people. Like if we thought we only had to, like if we talk about boundaries, you're like, okay, I just have to make it to whatever date. But we don't have whatever date it is, and without kind of going down a rabbit hole of doom and gloom, and they are saying, okay, the 10th or whatever it is, certain things open. Like we still going, oh, that's what they said last time. And there's still a lot of that going on. Like, of course, we want to be hopeful and we want to think the best is going to happen. But there is that, well, this is what what's happened, so we can't really trust that. But I suppose that's why it's more, I found, for me to kind of go, okay, today is Friday. It is Friday, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think.
Today is Friday, and I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you and I'm enjoying the chat, and I don't know what's going to happen in an hour's time. I don't know what's going to happen in a week's time. But right now, in this moment, this is what I can control. And even control is maybe too strong a word, but to just, if we get caught in what was or what's going to come and the unknown, instead of, none of us know we're going to wake up in the morning. We don't, that's not 100% guarantee. And we've spent this whole day worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or in 6 months' time. And we mentioned earlier about the conscious emotional processing, the biggest thing, and they're all talking now about toxic positivity and all that thing, but our toxic gratitude and forced gratitude, and you should be thankful because, or at least you have this, or at least you have that, as opposed to right now in this moment, I feel grateful because, and I genuinely feel grateful or happy or thankful or sad or whatever I'm feeling because, as opposed to that I have to be feeling grateful because someone else says I have to be grateful, or someone has it worse than me, or someone has it, like, you're not going to say I'm happy about someone because, like, not say you're happy about it because someone has it happier than you, whereas you have to say, oh, you can't be sad because someone has it worse than you, and the idea of how we're feeling, and it's all relevant. Whether someone has it worse or better, that's all completely irrelevant. It's how we're feeling and how we're processing things and how we go from day to day.
Yeah. Oh, that's another really, really, really good point. Oh, to stay away from, oh, well, at least there's this and at least there's that.
Yeah.
Just kind of it's about being mindful again and just appreciating today, and what we're doing today and everything.
Or if you feel rubbish today, that you're like, okay, I feel rubbish today, and that's today. So what can I do for myself, whether it's a duvet day or whether it's, okay, I'm in work, so I have to get to work. But what's something nice that I can do for myself this evening? Or like you're saying, okay, God, I'm in work and I'll wait, it's 5 o'clock, but okay, I have my lunchtime. So what's something nice I could do in my lunchtime? Whether it's going for a walk, or if it's doing your mindfulness, if that's what you're into, or if it's picking up the phone and calling a friend or something.
Yeah.
Anything that we can do to just try and make now that little bit easier on ourselves.
Yeah, and have something to look forward to as well. Like I'm known in the Open College now to get the odd package delivered.
My book collection is rapidly growing because I don't have to fit into a book because I'm eating too much. You're just buying stuff because it feels good, and I haven't even got time to read these books, but I will eventually.
Yeah.
But it felt good when I pressed that buy button. Oh dear.
I have nowhere to wear all these fancy dresses, but look, I'm just going to order one anyway.
Yeah, but what's to stop you putting it on and wearing it right now? I know I can't see it, but if it's making you feel good, then shove it on. Well, it all comes back to how you're feeling and what's going to help. Make things a little bit easier for you. So if you want to do up your hair, or if you want to, in the state we can please open again soon, hairdressers. Like, thank God you can't see my hair right now, but yeah. But it is what it is, and it just shows how caught up we got in those things that, I really miss getting my eyebrows done, I have to say. I can cope with the greys, but the eyebrows, it's so funny the way. And it's not even a vanity thing, it just always made me feel good. And it wasn't for other people, it was for me, because I felt nicer in myself. So if you've bought a pretty dress, put it on.
Yeah,
you don't need an event. Just put it on, because you wake up and you go, I feel nice in this today. As opposed to that I've got my tracksuit bottoms on the bottom and a fancy top, because that's what someone's going to see on the screen.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. I do enjoy it now. I have to say, I do really look forward to it. At the weekend. I would kind of pick a night now, dress up, and we would get takeaway, and we would get all that, and do the hair and the makeup, and try and look, a bit. We all kind of look forward to that, and we all kind of do the same, and it's something we all look forward to. Or if you're writing an assignment, for an example, when you're a student, say, okay, I'm going to put like €5 or €10 away every week, and then at the end of it I'm going to order myself something nice. You make up clothes, something for your home, furniture, whatever it is, something to to look forward to, or whatever it is. So look, Dara, I think we have to wrap up here. So I suppose it was really, really some excellent tips there, for students that are finding it difficult in any way, with their studies, if they're feeling overwhelmed or anything. I suppose if you just want to kind of wrap it up, and maybe if you just want to say one or two main points for our students to remember, if they're feeling a bit crap at the minute.
Don't sugarcoat it there.
No.
Yeah, no, you're right too. I suppose my biggest thing, like I was saying in the conversation that I had with my friend on what's kind of getting us through at the moment, and it is, we were trying to think, because I'm big, anyone who knows me is I'm big into my alliterations, and I like to, so I was trying to think, okay, energy, balance and boundaries, how can they all begin with B, or how can they all begin with E? And we were like, okay, BEB, and you're like, no, that sounds terrible. And then she's like, oh, ebb and flow, as in like the flow of the river and stuff. I was like, God, that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And it's like, it is about the energy that you're bringing for yourself at the minute, or the boundaries that you're setting or putting in place, whether they're internally or even just the way that we're talking to ourselves, or our expectations, and then just knowing that you don't have to do everything, that it is about balance. And if we talk about like the prioritizing mum, the idea behind it is that prioritizing doesn't mean just me, it's remembering me too. And you had mentioned about schedules, like that we have to prioritize our schedules. It's the idea, instead of scheduling time for us and priorities for us, and remembering that we matter, and that there's a person in prioritizing, and there's an I'm in important as well, and just taking that time for ourselves. That's my biggest. Yeah, just mind your energy and your boundaries. And
mind the energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right, Dara. Well, thanks a million for taking the time to chat to us today. I know you're very busy. So again, thanks a million. And if anybody out there wants to check out Prioritising Mum on Facebook, it's a really, really good resource for all parents out there.
It's on Instagram as well. And I have my Dara Byrne coaching. And then there's the Fertility Wellbeing Ireland. I suppose the whole idea is that it's just me as a person still figuring it all out. I'm still a work in progress, and you can join me on my journey as I'm sharing my learning and figuring it out until I'm in the space, energy-wise, that I can support other people, and I figure out what my niche is, or what career-wise that I want to do.
And that was Dara Byrne with Mary, talking all things wellbeing and parent related. As always, we hope you found this useful and can take something away from it. You can find us anywhere you get your usual dose of podcasts from. We're also available on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn, or on www.theopencollege.com. That's all for now, you guys. Goodbye.